favorite four numbers in Canadian history for anyone who is listening to this. 1867 Sports Show, back with you for another week. Episode 6 already
Yeah. Time
in the
flies when you're
books.
having fun.
Yeah, time flies when we're having fun. And I mean, time flies when we're also, just covering a bunch of great Canadian content with this show. But Kyle and Kyle, back with you for another week. What's up, buddy?
Well, just recovering from the Taylor Swift, watching an Usher halftime show with a little bit of a football game sprinkled around it there. But aside from
Yep.
that, ate myself into a good food coma, and now I'm back at her. Now that we're Tuesday, had a little bit of a rest period.
Yeah, I'm still reeling from the food.
Reeling, just
I'm
shocked.
still I'm still reeling from the food. It was so good that you gorge yourself just like many a football fan do on
Yeah,
the Super Bowl Sunday. And yeah, I haven't been eating much the last 2 days. Let's just put it that way.
a little more peckish on the diet
Yeah,
there on
I
Monday afternoon, were you?
yeah, I think I've stored enough food for the winter harvest, and we're good. So,
There you
but
go.
no, it was interesting, and I mean, obviously, we're talking about the big game and whatnot, and but yeah, from a Canadian perspective, let's just get right into it. You know, the most viewed Super Bowl in history, and obviously the Canadian viewership falls into that. And I mean, something kind of unique because you don't really talk about the viewership aspect of it, but 19 million unique viewers
Yeah.
in Canada watched that Super Bowl. And if you ask me what that means, I couldn't tell you, but it's an impressive number nonetheless. So, I mean, you kind of touched on some of the big storylines. And I mean, we were joking just before we hopped on here, like CBS getting their wish list of storylines checked off as we went,
Yeah.
with the press box, the on-field, drama of, oh well, what's going to happen at the very end, and then, yeah, obviously you kind of write the ending of the story perfectly with Travis and Taylor having their storybook romance kind of culminating with a Super Bowl victory and an embrace after. Jason Kelsey continuing to be, America's favorite human being. Um, and, uh, and yeah, like Andy Reid winning another one and solidifying his case for, um, probably comeback coach of this generation, given the fact that he was exiled
Yeah.
unfairly by your Philadelphia Eagles and has gone on to absolute superstardom with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, um,
Well, if we're
yeah,
gonna turn this into an Andy in Philadelphia episode, buckle up because I've got some thoughts there for the next 2.5 hours. But I mean, you kind of ran through it right there, right? It couldn't have been more of a CBS slash network dream there. You get your after
yeah,
school special on field smooch, Taylor's in the box, Jason Kelsey's cruising around in overalls, he's wearing a luchador mask at some points. Like it all worked out perfectly for them. But, you know, a lot has obviously been made of the whole, oh, Taylor Swift, and people seem to be pretty entrenched in one opinion or another. But listen, like the girl has generated, I think the
yep.
number pre-playoffs was like $335 million just worth of mentions, impressions, ticket sales, this, that, the other. So NFL, as far as they're concerned, Travis can continue dating this girl for the rest of his life there, right?
Oh, yeah. The Hunt family is forever in Taylor's gratitude because, obviously the $335 million is for the Kansas City Chiefs franchise, not the NFL.
Well,
Imagine
no,
what they've
it
gotten.
was both. It was NFL and
Was
Kansas
it
City,
both?
but
Okay.
it was a large chunk of that obviously is Kansas City merch because they're slapping it on everything, right? Even Kansas City has gotten into the Taylor's boyfriend with a Chiefs logo and all of that. So
My wife was rocking one of those for the game. Yeah.
yeah. But for anyone who is, much has obviously been made about the whole, okay, people are sitting there with stopwatches and being like, okay, of the what hour and a half broadcast there, she was only on there for 0.6%. And putting that aside though, I really liked one random comment that I stumbled across on the cesspool that is the internet about the Super Bowl.
What are you
Some
talking about? There's never anything negative on the internet.
Yeah, nothing but an emotional support group for the internet there, right? Like you go there to feel good about yourself. But
Absolutely.
one guy up on his soapbox and, oh, Taylor Swift, this is the last Super Bowl I'm ever watching. And then Buddy's
Uh-huh.
comment right underneath it was like, oh, it's fine. Don't worry. This is the first Super Bowl that my 14-year-old daughter is watching, so she'll happily take your place, right? So,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, hey, if you don't like that storyline, whatever, because the NFL,
exactly.
the Chiefs, Travis Kelsey, football in general, they're going to be leaning into it because there's mucho dinero in the Swifty world.
Yeah, and that was a very good point by you. I mean, you think about all the dads who kind of gave up their watching of football when they had their kids, and it's not exactly the thing that has to be on all the time in the house, especially if you've got little girls who might not be kind of brought towards it. So the fact that this has not only increased the viewership from a brand perspective, when you think about all the relationship building that has actually developed with a lot of dads who've been able to watch these games with their daughters and get them interested in something that they're interested in, I don't care about the Brads and Chads of the world who are going to say, well, this is the last one I'm watching. Like we heard the same story 2 years ago when Dr. Dre was the halftime show for the Super Bowl. We heard the same story, years ago when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee. Like all of these things are just empty threats for people who just want to have things stay the exact same. That I grew up watching it this way and it's going to stay that way, and I'll be damned if it's going to change. Well, guess what, guys? You're not the one paying the bills. You're not the one cashing all these checks. If you want to keep watching, great. If you don't, then like Kyle just said, there's a ton of new football fans that will take that place, and they'll actually grow the game exponentially without you in it because they won't have you chastising them for it. So
What's with all these quarterbacks having hair? Back in my day, they were going bald halfway through their career. Give me Terry Bradshaw back under center there.
look at them sideburns. Now, Johnny Unitas, there's a haircut you can set your watch to. Um, but 100%. So, anyways, good on, the good on
50% of the country tuning in. There you go. And that's not
exactly.
even counting all the illegal streams. Not that we're endorsing illegal
No, we're
streams here,
not. We're not
but
endorsing illegal streams, but
50% of the
if you,
country. It's the Super
yeah,
Bowl for a reason.
exactly. So I mean, good on all of those who tuned in for the game for whatever reason it may be. Fantastic halftime show, and it was again, it drew in a lot more interest at the later stages of the game. But now we're just without the NFL for a number of months, and we can focus all of our attention on the CFL, which is great. So, um, but that being said, I know that we have one thing moving away from the Super Bowl that you've been wanting to get off your chest for the last little bit. And it just so happens that we found a little bit of a conclusion to this whole thing today. So I'm talking about a recent game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Kyle's beloved Ottawa Senators. For anyone who didn't see it, we had is it Ridley Gregg?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ridley Gregg. Going
Shay.
down to score. Yeah, going
Shay
down to
Greg.
Shea Gregg. Yeah, Shea Gregg. Bruce Bowen's second cousin.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but going to score in an empty net against Toronto, took a slap shot, which is breaking the code, so to speak, and paid for it by getting an absolute rocket of a cross check by Morgan Rielly across the jaw. So it just came down today that Morgan Rielly received a 5-game suspension for said hit. Now I'll just turn it over to you, Kyle, and then we'll take it from there.
I mean, the whole thing's like an onion. We could do an entire episode on it here,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, first of all, I've got I think I fall in the weird camp of I don't mind the clapper into the empty net. It's a lot of years of frustration as far as, all right, Ottawa Senators host a home game and half your barn is filled with Leafs jerseys there. It's kind of like an FU, you know what? As bad as the season's kind of been, hey, we went 3-1 against you this year. We won the game. You didn't want that to happen. score more goals, let in
Yeah.
less. It's a very
Yeah.
controllable outcome. So I had no problem with that. I also didn't really have a problem with Rielly going after him after the game, but or not after the game with 5.1 seconds left there. The manner in which he did it probably shouldn't have happened there, but there was about 15 different options he could have taken to still get a message across, and I don't think
Yeah.
a 2x4 to the jaw was one of them. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the aftermath, like Sheldon Keefe and even all the players, like they're kind of doing the PR media tour as far as, oh, I was surprised about the in-person hearing. And for those that don't know, obviously an in-person hearing means that they can suspend them for a longer amount of time. If it's over
Yeah.
the phone, it's going to be 5 or less guaranteed. So they open the door to 6 or more essentially with the in-person hearing. Ironically enough, I think it got canceled due to inclement weather, so it didn't end up
Yeah.
being an in-person meeting.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I kind of figured it was probably going to be within that 4 to 6 range, because you look at the David Perron very similar incident to Artem Zub, ironically, so another one involving a
Yeah.
senator eating a cross check to the head. He got 6 games for it, right? And so I kind of view it as, first of all, the NHL Department of Player Safety has a wildly uneven track record in handing this stuff out. But this was one that I think that they kind of got right, in the sense of, all right, if you take 6 as the example for Perron, but you factor in that old school, like, oh, the code got broken, so we minus
Yeah.
1 from that suspension, like you're kind of in the ballpark there a little bit. But I mean, the whole notion of anyone who thinks that it's not a suspendable offense. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like the sport has taken
Yeah.
so many strides in recent years about safety and concussion and taking those elements out of the game. Like you can bleed Maple Leaf blue, but if you're gonna sit there and try and tell me, nope, it broke the code. So he got up after the game, so guess what? He's still ready to play and didn't deserve a suspension. I don't know. Like, go argue with the
Yeah.
wall, because you don't have 2 brain cells to rub together here. But you can debate the length of the suspension, but the whole point of this, oh, he broke the code thing. I mean, at the end of the day, like, what is the code anymore? Like, guess
Yeah.
what? You're showing them up, slapping it into an empty netter. So what? He needs to slide it in gently. Like the Patrick Stephans of the world have the horror stories of like what happens when you try and do that. It goes back the other way, and you get
I mean,
scored.
I loved every second of that one.
I know, as an Oilers fan, you probably did. But like, so my whole question to anyone who even tries to make the argument of they broke the code, they were showing them up, he should have never done that. What is showing them up? So every time someone does the Michigan, they're going to eat a 2x4 to the jaw. Like, that's showing them up way more than firing it into an empty netter in my mind.
I,
So
I think too many people have been watching Shorzy and seeing the repercussions of breaking the code.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I very rarely will kind of applaud the DOPS there of enforcing things. In the back of my mind, I thought, all right, the Toronto bias, they're probably going to go a little bit easier on them, but they kind of stuck to what they've been handing out.
Yeah.
So, you know what? It's 100% suspendable. Did they get the number right? Yeah, okay. You can argue maybe plus or minus a game or two here or there. But at the end of the day, they suspended him. He should have been suspended. Do I really mind Rielly going after him? No. Do I mind, Grieg firing it into the empty net? No. But it was the manner
Yeah.
in which it took place, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I'm in the same boat as well. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter if he guides into the net, takes a slap shot, puts a backhand, does a wrap around, whatever? No, it went in the net. It's an extra goal, is what it is. It still counts the same. Now, I mean, obviously, there's still that old school element of, all right, we got to protect, the sanctity of, of the game and whatnot. And, this goes to, you look at any big body check now
Yeah.
results in a fight. Like
Yeah.
you can't do a lot of the things that you used to have as commonplace. So, I mean, I think from Rielly's perspective, I actually like the fact that he went and did something about it. However, I think a simple punch to the face would have sufficed,
Yeah.
and not a cross check to the jaw. Because you think about all the things that have happened lately, and especially in the head and neck area, if that cross check comes across his neck on his
Mhm.
carotid artery, right? It ruptures,
Mhm.
you know, dead,
Yeah.
right? He gets him in the jaw in the right spot. Now the guy has to have his jaw wired shut. He's out for, 6 months. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that can happen whenever you get a stick in the face. So that aspect of it definitely warranted a suspension. And I'm with you. I think that 5 games is probably the right number.
Mhm.
Um, and again, yeah, anybody who's complaining about, he deserved it. Regardless if he deserved it or not, it still doesn't warrant a cross check to the jaw,
Yeah.
right? So I think that they got it right. 5 games is good. I think both players will learn from this situation and handle it much differently next time. And yeah, I mean, it just adds more fuel to the Ottawa Toronto rivalry. So I think all in all, it ended up, probably the best spot that it could have after a situation like that.
Yeah. My final two thoughts on it, right, is number one, I know exactly where that's really coming from with Rielly, because you listen to all the chatter around the Maple Leafs, and what is the number one thing that fans have been saying, whether it's playoff exits, whether it's in season, whatever it's there's no pushback, there's no sandpaper, there's no,
Yeah,
they're all flash, but they have no one who's sticking up for the crest on the front of the jersey and this, that, the other. So he's been hearing it all. It's just the manner in which he did it, right? Like you
yeah,
said, there was about 15 different options that they could have sent a message there, and I don't think using an Easton was the correct method to choose there. But at the same time, I'm all for finally getting some juice back in the Battle of
yeah,
Ontario, because you look
yeah.
at the trajectories of these two teams have not been relevant at the same time in
No,
over a decade. Because leading up to getting Austin Matthews, the Leafs were just missing the playoffs all the time, right? And then Ottawa, as soon as 2017 ended, well, here we go, big old crater right now, and they've been in this perpetual rebuild since. So there's been a huge lack, and there's no one that still is on either of those teams except for Alfie and kind of consulting and coaching roles there with Ottawa.
yeah,
That is still there from the Gary Roberts, Matt Sundin, Alfie Tucker kind of era. So it's
yeah,
lost a lot of luster over the years. So I'm all for it. My biggest not regret, because I can't control the schedule, but that's the last time they play each other this year. So they can't even do anything about it until
yeah.
next season. So I would have loved, just even if it was 3 weeks from now, have that grudge match out there and see how squirrely things can really get on the ice.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about a situation like that, and back in the Detroit, Colorado, 90s era, right, where
Yeah.
you had every game with the potential of a line brawl happening. So, 100%. But yeah, if this injects some juice into that rivalry again, then again, I'm all for it as a hockey fan, and yeah, we'll see where we go. But I mean, thinking outside of the box here as to why there's might be some frustration bubbling on the Toronto side of things. I mean, another story that came out, just today with, involving John Tavares.
Yeah.
And, again, this is
One of the
kind of the
most
state of,
unique chants in all of sports took place during that game there.
yeah. But I mean, you look at what John Tavares is going through, and anyone who doesn't understand, this situation or doesn't know about the situation, he's in a battle right now with CRA over an $8 million tax bill on his $13 million salary.
Yeah.
So think about that. He is he's being challenged to pay $8 million in taxes out of the $13 million that he is making. I mean, I realize that people are going to say, "Well, I guess $5 million is a real hardship to live on." But when you're making 13 million and you're getting taxed over 50% of it, I would have a problem with that too. So I mean, this is a situation where I think it's more prominent when it comes to free agency, especially in the NHL. This is why teams in Canada struggle so badly to lure these top free agents
Yeah.
because of these tax issues, right?
Hmm.
Why? One, I'm getting paid in American money, but it has to be converted because the money coming in from the gate revenue is Canadian. So now teams are not willing to fork over a lot of these. Like obviously, Toronto's in a different mentality because they're of the ownership group, but there's so many factors that play into these types of things, and this is the main one. I mean, I go back to the year before they landed Tavares with Steven Stamkos
Mhm.
and saying, well, Steven Stamkos is from Markham. He's going to come back home and play for the Leafs. And people didn't really take that into consideration. Like, look, he plays in Florida.
No state income
Guess what?
tax.
Guess what the state income tax in Florida is? A
Uh,
whole big zero. So why would you not want to go explore playing in a place like Florida or Texas or any of the states down there that don't have that state income tax because you keep more of the money that you are making and sign on with your contract. So
mhm.
I think it's ridiculous, first of all. And second of all, I mean, that's all I'd be thinking about if I was John Tavares.
Yeah. So for those that didn't actually tune into the game, one of the chants that was going on inside the arena there was "Pay your taxes" every time Tavares touched the puck. So
Amazing.
kudos to the fans for picking up on that one. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's all kind of stemming from how contracts are structured and the signing bonuses and when they got paid out and this, that, the other. So it ends up being these huge bills that ultimately dissuade marquee free agents from coming north of the border. Now,
Mhm.
let's just assume all things are equal here. We'll throw out the fact that, yeah, guess what? In the States, there's some places that have sunny weather 365 days a year, as opposed to the blistering cold of, Winnipeg, Manitoba in winter. So, all things being equal, it's such a simple fix for the NHL
Yep.
to do, is in terms of just saying, okay, Canadian tax law is this. United States tax law is this. So we are going to allow, caps kind of circumvention or different rules around salaries for those north of the border. Now you can say, oh,
Yeah.
that's going to open Pandora's boxes. What about Nevada? What about Florida teams? No state in. That's fine. You literally do it based on the state. Like
Yeah.
there's entire people's jobs is accounting. It's not hard. Like I'm sure if you sat someone down with a degree in accounting, it would take them an afternoon to figure this
Yeah.
out.
As long as we don't get the Phoenix pay scale system involved, I think we'll be good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my god! And
Because
John Tavares has not been paid his wages in 8 years, so
out of the $77 million contract, he has earned zero.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, that was just something that I read today, and obviously, like during the game, fans picking up on that. But again, I understand where some frustrations coming from the Toronto from the
yeah.
Toronto program, if that's the case with all their players having to go through all that. But anyways, I digress. And sticking with the hockey theme, we had a very very huge moment for the Canadian women's hockey program over the course of the last week and a half. And obviously, the Canadian women and the U.S. women have this rivalry series that they go through, every year, just to kind of keep things on the prominent level, just to kind of keep things, at a competitive level. And the U.S. actually went up 3 games to nothing in a
Yeah.
best of seven series against the Canadian women,
Not our
only
best
to see
start.
not our best start, but only to see Team Canada rally back and rattle off 4 straight wins to take the series in game 7. I mean, let's get a golf clap for the Canadian women's hockey program just absolutely digging deep and getting that rivalry series swayed back on this side of the border. So kudos to you, ladies. I didn't catch much of the. I saw the one. It was a game 2, and yeah, I was like, yeah, this is bad. Like, the U.S. looks really good. Canada does not look good at all. And just seeing highlights of all of the Canadian wins coming back, and it's like there were so many chances for them to just say, all right, let's just move on. We'll get them at the World Championships. We'll get them at the Olympics, and we'll just kind of go from there. But you could tell like this means something, right? Like especially to these two countries. These are the two countries that drive women's hockey. And the fact that now we've got not only the PWHL rolling, but we have these two programs that are just battling tooth and nail over something that only concerns them. This is the type of thing that can, again, advance the women's game even that much further. So, I mean, I'm all for it. I love seeing the competitive drive between all of these players that play on both of these teams. And I think it's going to carry over into their respective PWHL seasons as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And, for years, it's literally just been all right, Canada, US, and the also rans, right? In
Yeah.
terms of international hockey. And, one big takeaway from this inaugural PWHL season is there is quite a bit of talent around the globe. Now, we'll call it what it is here. Still predominantly North American players that are
Yep.
ultimately forming all of these rosters. But you're starting to see, what, that gap is closing little by
It is.
little here. And it's kind of reminiscent of how basketball on a global scale was for years, where it was just, all right, Team USA, here's your gold medal. And all right, you little scamps, let's see who gets to get their brains kicked in by them in the finals, right?
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see a lot of these overseas countries and European countries, especially, really getting their crap together with these
Yep.
academies and these international programs and their long-term athletic development. And suddenly the Frances and the Spains and the Serbias and all these teams have closed the gap on Team USA. But for international hockey, uh, it really still is Canada, US. That's what people puts butts in seats, right? So to
Yeah.
see them go to 7 games and it's not just, oh, 4 straight. Look at the US. They ran roughshod over them. Trying to remember what movie it was there, but it's the showdown, and then all of a sudden it's oh, I'm not actually left-handed, right? And then they just kind of turn it on for the second half
Yeah.
there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so that it was kind of the old bait and switch, but I mean, anytime that rivalry is in a good spot, the sport is in a good spot.
Yeah. 100%. And like I was saying, it's one thing to have these showcase tournaments and showcase events just to highlight the game, but it's another to have the players care so much about it that it just takes it to that next level. So 100%. I love the fact that it was competitive. I love the fact that you're seeing more passion coming out of these tournaments than ever before, and it's just setting up for such a great future, like you're saying, with international play across the globe. Um, but yeah, I mean, sticking with the international flavor, another significant moment in Canada basketball,
Yeah.
and again, you and I were talking about it a little bit earlier, but for the first time ever, both the
That's the
Canadian women,
history of the world for
that
those
is
that
the
are paying
history
attention.
of the world. Yes, EVER, ever. Um, both the Canadian men's and women's basketball programs have qualified for the Olympics, which, again, golf clap for Team
Hey.
Canada, men and women. I mean, what a tremendous period of time that we're in from the hockey perspective that we just spoke about. We've talked about the soccer perspective with the state, of both of those programs, with the men's team obviously going to 2 straight World Cups, which has never happened before in their history. The women's program at the top of their game and winning gold medals and medaling at world championships, Olympics, whatever. Now we've got it on the basketball side, and again, the men's team doing very well overseas in the World Championships. The women's team beating Team USA, I think, for the first time in 10 years last year at an international event. So the state of sports in Canada it's actually mind blowing. This is the first time this has happened in our lifetime, which is great. And the fact that we can keep building on this and have these younger generations become that much better at these crafts than we were in our generation, it actually sets it up for a very, very profitable future for Canadian athletics as a whole.
Yeah.
So the next step is just to get baseball. Baseball, pick your shit up. Let's go. We
Yeah.
gotta we gotta get you guys on track here.
Yeah. Well, before I go on my whole spiel here, I want to do a little golf clap as well for Spain in general, because it was actually Canada's men beating Spain 88-85 at the World Cup that punched their ticket through, and the women
Mhm.
qualified because Spain beat Hungary on Sunday. So the
Yep.
Spanish teams actually played an outsized role in getting us back to the Olympics. But
Muchos gracias.
Yeah, there we go. Look at us diversifying the languages here on the show. But it really is a huge step for them too. And they're
Yeah,
in such a good spot because you look at the NCAA landscape right now. There's a ton of Canadians playing
yeah,
prominent roles for big time programs. Like it used to be back in the day. Like, all right, if we can get someone on to Arkansas State who went 4-23 this year, good for us. Like we've got Aaliyah Edwards playing for UConn, one of the top programs in the entire country. You've got
yeah,
girls coming out of South Carolina. You've got like it's all sorts of very, very talented, future WNBA draft picks that we're talking about. Whereas it used to literally be, all right, let's kind of take a U Sport all-star team and maybe we've got like one playing professionally overseas somewhere. So to see the amount of progress that the women's side has made there,
yeah,
unbelievable, right? And
yeah.
obviously they're going to be looking at improving on a pretty disappointing ninth place finish in Tokyo in 2020. Went
Hmm.
1-2 in group play and didn't even advance to the elimination stage, which given the roster they had, like they should have been one of the top 8 countries there.
Yeah,
That was a fairly surprising result on that one. Should they have medaled? Hard to say, right? But finishing ninth in that tournament was pretty shocking. So they're going to be
yeah,
coming in motivated, and I think they've got an influx of young talent mixed with some grizzled veterans there, like the Bridget Carltons, the Kia nurses of the world who have represented Canada on multiple occasions at huge
yeah,
international tournaments. So men returning there for the first time since 2000 was the good old Sydney Olympics. What was that in 2000?
yeah. The Sydney Olympics. Yep.
Yeah. So going from down under over to Paris for 2024. And the men's side have as good a shot to medal as anyone outside of Team USA right there, right? And
Yeah,
you've got a very, very talented women's squad that if they get the right breaks, right, like just qualified. So we don't know what group they're playing and we don't know their schedule
yeah,
or anything like that yet. But
yeah.
if they can get a favorable draw, they're very much in medal contention as well.
Absolutely. And again, it's one of those things that we just talked about with from the hockey side. You're seeing the passion for representing their country really shine through, which we
Mhm.
hadn't seen from a basketball perspective, for years.
Yeah.
And now it's Canada can legitimately send a top tier Olympic, you know, team to these events because we've got an influx of talent to choose from,
Mhm.
which, when
We're
you ask
cutting
any
NBA
coach,
players for
yeah,
the first time
exactly.
in program
You know,
history.
cutting NBA players, cutting WNBA players to form these rosters. Like, this is something that, again, going forward with the state of these programs, it's only going to get better
Mhm.
because the resources have been allocated. The coaching I think has been fixed, which I think was a huge issue before. So now you've got the talent from the players, you've got the resources from either the government or the Olympic Committee, whatever it may be, and you've got the education factor behind it with the coaches, nutritionists, all these other things that are catching up to these other countries now. And now we're going to be able to actually have some fun watching these games because, hey, there's hope. It's
Yeah.
not just, oh, we qualified and that's great. Let's just go watch them play and get, beat by, Greece or Nigeria or Brazil, like, we have in years past. So, you know, again, we talked about the men's side of things, and we'll do kind of the same thing that we did last week when we kind of forecasted what the potential Canadian men's hockey program will look like. We'll do that kind of leading up to those games and saying this is what the projected roster could be, what it could look like, and we'll have some fun with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, let's just enjoy it for what it is right now. We can speculate, we can make assumptions as to what the rosters are going to be, but hey, they are both in the running for an Olympic medal because they have qualified very early. There's no biting any nails leading into this thing, so Canadian basketball in a very, very healthy spot right now.
Yeah. And the Gilgis-Alexander family can add a second Olympian now because
That's right.
Mama Charmaine, 400-meter track and field athlete back in 1992. So
Yeah.
SGA sneaks in there, gets to get the Olympic rings there like his mom. So shout out to
Yeah.
Charmaine,
There
throwback.
we go. Sure. Sure. Mama Charmaine.
Yeah,
All right. But again, like this is all great. I mean, after last week's episode, we were kind of gloomy. We are talking about a lot of downtrodden things. So I'm happy that we're back on the. This is positive.
yeah, yeah. Well, we had to invent a stern father look to hand out some failing grades to a lot of these organizations. So we're back on the upswing, baby.
Yeah, we're back on the upswing. We've got the golf clap in full effect this week, as opposed to the stern dad glance of last week. So that's good.
Do you
Um,
want to continue on golf there, seeing as we're talking about golf claps now? A certain individual had himself a weekend there.
Take it away, man.
Oh, Nick Taylor. For those you want to talk about comebacks, we were just talking about how, Spain had to come back 22 points down against Hungary to punch the women's ticket to the 2024 Olympics in Paris there. Our friend Nick Taylor, who famously won the Canadian Open his last time out, only to see his good friend and fellow golfer get speared on the green trying to join in on the celebration. Well, he's building off that success and took
Yeah,
down the Waste Management Open, now renamed the Phoenix Open, which I don't fully love, but it'll always be the Waste Management Open to me.
yeah,
But second playoff hole there. So he was down 3 strokes with 4 holes to play.
yeah,
Came roaring back and took it on the second playoff. So definite golf claps to Nick
yes,
Taylor. Look at him go.
yeah, yeah. No, and I mean, you talk about those Canadian iconic moments, and I think now this is two that he's
Yeah.
provided. One, as you mentioned, with an absolute legendary putt to win the Canadian Open,
Yeah.
last year. And the ensuing celebration was obviously the talk of the PGA Tour for the next 2, 3 months. But now the fact that, and again, those of you who don't play golf, I don't think you understand how difficult it is to come back from 3 strokes down with 4 holes to play.
Yeah.
It is unheard of.
Yeah.
You can probably count the amount of times it's happened on one hand in the history of golf. And yeah, the fact that he was able to do that and then keep the momentum going into the playoff round to secure that, because a lot of these times guys will go on these runs and then the magic will run out on the first playoff hole,
Yeah.
and it's all for naught. But yeah, the fact that he was able to finish that story, I mean, just amazing. And he's putting himself in a position now where a lot of people are going to have him as a betting favorite at a lot of these upcoming majors that are
Mhm.
around the corner, because he's showing this penchant for these big time moments that don't rattle him,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you need to have at the Masters, at the British Open, U.S. Open, whatever it may be. So hey, let's just get Nick Taylor at the top of those betting lists so that way we can start putting some money and hopefully getting a good return on our investment.
Yeah, Mike Weir 2.0 rocking the green jacket there. But so my I guess future brother-in-law, because they're currently engaged right now, he and his friends were actually on site at the Waste Management Open
I
there.
knew some people there as well.
And their scouting report was essentially everything you heard that was going on television, and the people streaking and drunks everywhere and people getting trampled, and like that's only a tenth of the debauchery
Mhm.
that was really going on there. And so the PGA Tour's already come out and been like, all right, drastic reforms are happening to this event next year and all of that. But you want to talk about iconic putts, and I'll maybe try and find a link to it and maybe put it in the video description there. So for those that are listening to the audio, hop over to our YouTube page and you can see what we're describing here. But it's
Yeah.
essentially Nick Taylor in the second playoff hole, lining up his 11-foot birdie putt for the win. And it's a shot from far enough away that you can see the crowd. And there is one individual that is so drunk, he's being supported up by his friend, and the wobble that he has going on, like it goes on for like 30 seconds of him just like fighting for his life to stay upright. And it perfectly coincides that when the putt drops, he just falls to the ground, and then there's just chaos around him there. So it's a fantastic video, but yeah, it was apparently a sight to behold. Sodom and Gomorrah taking place in Phoenix over
Yeah,
the weekend.
but I mean, again, you talk about an iconic tournament that people remember, that people talk about and look forward to every year. I think outside of all the majors, this is probably the one that people
Yeah.
do look forward to because of the aforementioned debauchery that is known for. So yeah, what did
Normally, we
they at
got
the end?
Shooter McGavin there. Go back to your
Yeah,
shanties, you
that's
people.
100% what I was thinking of. I mean, you're seeing the Happy Gilmore shirts, like the beach balls in the crowd, but yeah, like did they have to cut off uh beer sales
Oh
at
yeah.
like noon?
Oh yeah. Well, they had
Yeah,
almost drank the place dry to begin with, but then they were to save face, like, oh no, we're cutting it off. You guys are getting too
yeah,
rowdy, and apparently that just
yeah.
pissed off people even more. So, you know, what's the one thing that angers people who are out drinking? Tell them they can't drink anymore. So
Yeah,
when you got
and
almost
and
500,000 people on a course, like that's
I
gonna
wasn't,
happen.
I wasn't gonna break into my emergency flask in my sock, but now you guys have really got
Yeah,
it up for.
yeah. Oh
Um,
man.
but one day we should make our way down there and and see it with our own eyes because I've heard so many funny stories from people that I know that have gone down to that tournament. But yeah,
We're
I
taking
mean,
the
obviously
1867 sports show on the road. So
on the
Air
road.
Canada, you want to sponsor us? Fly us down. Here we go, boys.
Absolutely. And I mean, we'll go down there for the announcement of the expansion PWHL franchise that Kyle wants to put down in Phoenix. And
Yeah. Glendale Roadrunners. Here you go.
oh yeah. But yeah, we'll get back on track here and talk about something else that actually was officially started today, which was CFL Free Agency. Again,
Hey.
not a lot of people know when CFL free agency actually begins because you've been hearing some things like, so and so
Because
has
the
been
CFL
signed. So
makes it a convoluted process to begin
yeah,
with
so
here.
so
So,
and yeah, so and so has agreed to terms. So and so is going to sign here. But officially, as of noon today, players could sign their contracts and move around. So. Um, yeah, just some interesting tidbits because obviously it was busy leading up to the day, and then obviously all these things became official. But some of the storylines that I thought we could talk about. The biggest one to me, Matthew Betts for University of Laval products, three-time JP Metris Award winner, which is synonymous with the top down lineman in Canadian University. So the fact that he's won it 3 years, 3 years in a row,
oh, so
kind
he's
of
pretty
gives you an
good
idea.
then, eh? Yeah.
Kind of gives you an
He
idea
knows
of
how to
how
play
good this
pigskin.
guy is. Yeah. So turn that into a first round selection by the BC Lions, I believe. Um, and or no, sorry, he was drafted by Edmonton, signed with BC, just put together one of the best seasons in CFL history from a defensive end, one defensive player of the year, and now has parlayed that into signing a contract with the Detroit Lions. So from one Lions to another Lions, and the best free agent is off the market and not even available to any CFL team. But you know, just thoughts on the potential that a guy like Matthew Betts, you know, going down and signing with an NFL team could have, with a lot of these other free agents that are on the market right
Well, first of all, he better get used to the taste of kneecaps if he's going to go and play
now.
for our good friends down in the Motor City. But I mean, you got to love it, right? Because it's
Yeah,
a homegrown talent who's getting a big shot at it. And these have been really hit or miss over the years, right? Like you've had all sorts of hype behind the Nathan Rourke's of the world, and he just gets buried on a depth chart and,
yeah,
kind of cloudy future. And maybe did he make the right decision leaving in the CFL just to be bouncing around practice squads. I get the sense that Betts will have a role to play. Is he going to be a
hmm
starter in year one? Probably not, right? He's going to have a pathway to at least being a
yeah,
rotational piece and at least getting an extended look at training camp and see where he kind of slots in on that depth chart. But overall, especially at a position like defensive lineman where you can get some early reps and kind of be part of a rotational unit as opposed to being the guy like at quarterback. There can only be one of you on the field at a time, right?
Yeah,
I'm a little bit more bullish on him than some of the prospects that have gone down there over the last couple of years. But that being said, I mean, it's really great to see and showing future athletes coming up that hey, there is a pathway to success. And some people will kind of turn their nose up at, oh, CFL, like my dream's the NFL. It's like, go out and play football, showcase your
yeah,
talents. If you're good enough, you'll be able to get to where you want to go. There's no
yeah,
one route that it's this way or nothing. If you're not a first round NFL draft pick, you're never suiting up, right? Like we just had Isaiah Pacheco, who out there, he was, I think, the seventh last pick of the draft, and he's got Super Bowls in both his first two seasons, right?
yeah,
We've all heard the Brock Purdy story to death there as well too. Undrafted free agents. There's more than one way that you can get to where you want to go. And the CFL, you talk to anyone who has ever spent a single snap in the CFL, who has done both NFL and CFL, and they'll tell you, aside from maybe the top 10% of NFL players who are just the truly elite of the Patrick Mahomes of the world and all that,
yeah,
it's not as nearly as big of a talent drop off as the casual football fan might think with the rest of
yeah, 100%. And this is eerily reminiscent of a former BC Lion defensive end who led the league in sacks, won Defensive Player of the Year, and parlayed that into a outstanding NFL career,
I'm pretty sure
starting out
he
as a
he just
rookie.
got named to 2025 finalist class for the NFL Hall of Fame as well
He
too.
did, and of course, we're talking about the great Cameron Wake. But yeah, Matthew Betts actually reminds me a lot of Cameron Wake. Same type of body, great first step off the line of scrimmage. Obviously, he's got a great pedigree, and you mentioned earlier the fact that he's homegrown. You don't see this very often, right?
Mhm.
He's kind of done it the exact way that you would ultimately want to see a Canadian prospect do it.
Yeah.
Went through the Canadian system, went to the CFL. He worked out for teams all along the way, waited for the right opportunity to go and sign with a team that one has a need and two is going to be competitive. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can see him sticking with that roster and being an impact player from day one. And I mean, the fact that he has parlayed this workout opportunity into an actual contract. You see it all the time. The guys negotiate windows in their contract that allows them to go try out and work out for these NFL teams.
Mhm.
Now, the majority of them don't end up signing. However, they get invited to training camp sometimes, and they'll stick around, but they come back to the CFL, which again, it's a good learning experience. This is the type of thing where if Matthew Betts goes and actually does what I think he's going to do, this is going to open up a lot more opportunities for these Canadian players to go and do the same thing and follow the same footsteps that he's followed. So this is a huge signing for people who don't understand it. It might just seem like the regular, oh yeah, well, Nathan Rourke signed with Jacksonville. This is totally different
Mhm.
because this is actually going to be a situation where he can go in and play from day one.
Yeah.
So let's just give a golf clap to Mr. Betts for, again, putting together a fantastic collegiate career, an outstanding CFL career, and let's hope, a very, very, very good NFL career with the remaining years he's gotten in football. So,
Yeah. And
um,
for anyone who is working at the CFL with U Sports, like we talk all the time about how you fail to
yep.
market yourself. Grab onto this kid. I don't care if it's a documentary.
Yeah,
I don't care if you slap his image on posters. Like, don't let this stuff slide by because it will have a huge impact on those grassroots kids who are trying to become the next Betts that's coming out of
yeah.
Canada.
What have we just talked about, the first half of this show? We talked about the state of Canadian women's hockey. We talked about the state of the Canadian, basketball program. We even mentioned the Canadian soccer programs. Where have they gone right in developing a steady pipeline of talent to come through and make their programs elite, the grassroots level, because they have done things the proper way, like we mentioned earlier, from coaching and education to resource management to talent. Like all those things combined make it what it is. So yes, I 100% agree with you. The fact that you're not pumping up Nathan Rourke more, the fact that you're not, getting on this Matthew Betts train, you got four Canadians who are going to represent their respective programs at the NFL Combine coming up at the end of the month. So, this is one thing where football in Canada, from a talent perspective, has never been in a healthier place because there's so much talent coming out of, I look at it because we live in Ottawa, like Ottawa especially is a hotbed.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows that?
Not a whole lot of people.
Not a whole lot of people.
The scouting department at the University of like Illinois and like the northern state, that's about it, right? Like,
yeah. But I mean, like you're seeing players going down. They're playing at Penn State. They're playing at Oklahoma. They're playing in Alabama. Like we talked about John Mechie a couple weeks ago with Henry Burris. Like no one knew he was Canadian.
Yeah.
Everyone just assumed, well, he's playing in Alabama. He's got to be from Mississippi or Florida or whatever it may be. Like he's from Brampton.
Yeah.
So
where's that accent from? I can't quite place that there.
But this is again a shot at developing this the proper way, marketing your talent the proper way, so that way it might only attract a certain few people. But out of those certain few people, how many of them are going to, have that resonate with them and then try to pursue the same type of path? So 100% agree with you. And if anyone from the CFL is listening to this, listen, Kyle and I are here. Let us know what you need us to do. We will take the reins on it and do it.
Yeah.
But
and I'll update the CFL stats on their website as well too.
And we'll update the CFL stats. Yeah, exactly. We'll give you a discount on it. But anyways, obviously that's a great story. But I'm looking at the signings so far from a lot of these teams, and I'm trying to put, obviously, like it's way too early to tell like who's won free agency already. But I gotta say, I was trying to put together who I thought had the best day today for official signings to getting things kind of set up. And I mean, these ones were announced, a week ago. But I look at what the Red Blacks have been able to do in free agency, and just with the four names that I'm going to highlight now, you can look at and say, need, 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 and then not only that, top player, top player, top player, top player.
And I'm going to stop you right there because if you go to the CFL website and you go to the tracking system, it shows 0 transactions for the Ottawa Red Blacks today.
Yeah.
This is your whole job. Track the friggin' transactions in your league. 0 transactions.
Yeah. And you know what? I will give a shout out to a Canadian group called 3 Down Nation. They do a great job with reporting on everything Canadian football related. And again, there's just anybody who's looking to get those updates that the CFL website's not providing you, either go to Dimes Press Box or, again, I highly recommend 3 Down Nation.
Golf clap to our friends over at 3 Down Nation. There you go.
Golf clap for the boys at 3 Down Nation for sure. But Ottawa Red Blacks, obviously the big name on the market that everyone was kind of clamoring after. We talked about in episode 2, Drew Brown. So there's your quarterback that you brought in. He's penciled in right now as your starter. He's the guy that's going to look to take over. But you've also got, the Dustin Crum coming back. You've got, some talent around there. Who knows? Jeremiah Masoli might have another little, burst energy that gets him, that one last good season. But you look at their quarterback room now, you ask anybody, they're a lot more comfortable with the guys sitting in those chairs now. So again, you start out great signing with Drew Brown and on a very affordable contract too. Not like you're breaking the bank and spending all of your cap space on him. You're bringing him in at a very reasonable number. One of my favorite players from when I used to work for the Red Blacks, because he was such a great ambassador for the team, great in the community, and hell of a player, They brought back Dominique Rhymes, which
Mhm.
again, great receiver, just came off of a career year in BC, coming back to play for the team that really, identified him as a prospect, found him a spot in the CFL, and allowed him to kind of, propel himself into what he is now. Fills a need. They don't have a lot of third down weapon, or sorry, second and long type weapons. The receiver who's going to take the top off of a defense. This is your guy. Now you mix him in with your existing receiving core. Now you've got a competent set of receivers to help a guy like Drew Brown, acclimate himself into that Ottawa offense. So great signing there. Their biggest need last year outside of quarterback was offensive line. Huge, huge holes that they needed to fill, either with injury or just misplacement of talent. They got rid of their offensive line coach and brought in a new guy. They also brought in one of the top offensive linemen on the market from Toronto, Darius Blada. I mean, huge guy, can play tackle, can play guard. This is exactly the type of player that you want. He's versatile. He's relatively young. He's got a lot of good years left. This is exactly what you need to solidify that offense to give, again, a guy like Drew Brown the opportunity to go out and excel, as the starting quarterback. So I love that signing. And then again, you're going to a fantastic program like the Toronto Argonauts because they've obviously, been developing talent left, right, and center over the last 5, 6 years. But they got a really good linebacker, Darius Pickett. Again, people who don't watch a lot of the Argos, this is the type of guy where you want to build the defense around. He plays like his hair's on fire. He's all over the field. He makes tackles left, right, and center. He's great in coverage, and I think he's a really good leader as well. So just with those four guys alone, it doesn't matter what else you do to fill the spots in your roster. You've got four legitimate, all-star caliber players that you've now brought in just in one day of free agency. So I look at after day one, Ottawa's done a really good job at, again, trying to move forward and get past this hump of we've got a good team on paper. How do we get it to the next phase of actually seeing results on the field?
Yeah. And, I think you bring up a really good point in terms of them finally addressing need this
Mm-hmm.
offseason because, you look at what kind of Dice and Berkey and all of them have been doing, obviously last season and the previous regimes before them. It
Yeah,
feels like that they were taking swings, but they were spending money in weird places, right? They were just
yeah,
continually trying to fit square pegs into round holes. And it's like, oh, great. You brought in a defensive back, but we needed defensive line help, right?
yeah,
Or, hey, we're going to kind of roll the dice with these unproven quarterbacks. And, this
yeah.
year, finally, I think is the first time in several years that you can
We'll
feel,
develop them.
yeah, so you can feel actually confident about that
Yeah,
quarterback room going in. And guess what? Knock on every piece of wood possible that we don't have another season where we're going through like 4 or 5 of them. But let's just even say Brown does end up going down there. You've got some backup options there in Crum,
yeah,
in Masoli, and so there's some built-in security, and that has a very calming effect on your team when the
yeah,
leaders are really the best at their skill positions there, right? And
yeah,
the step forward of them actually addressing their holes, spending money wisely, like you said, they're not just throwing bad money after good money, and hey, let's break the bank here, and now we're in cap hell all of a sudden here. They're doing pretty good as far as plugging a lot of the holes that not just those that are in the CFL know or the football industry, but just were patently lacking to the average fan who is watching on TSN or in the stadium there and are just like, how can I see that this is such a need and they
yeah,
continually don't address these areas? So kudos
yeah,
to them for stepping up and really, I think, putting that team in position to really climb up the Eastern standings this season.
yeah. And then that's exactly how you do it. You bring in guys who fit your system as opposed to the big name guys who, might sell tickets for the first, 3, 4 games, but then they don't make an impact after
Yeah.
that. But
Suddenly,
again,
when you're one
before,
in 10, those tickets aren't flying out the door
yeah,
quite as quickly, eh?
exactly. But yeah, I thought I was done a really good job from top to bottom so far. And I'll just mention two other signings that I really like, especially with the fit. So one, out in Calgary, we mentioned, we've got Jake Meyer, who's taking over as the starting quarterback out there. Um, Again, young guy trying to prove himself, but they just brought in a good veteran backup to again spell him, push him in Matthew Schiltz. Schiltz has had a fairly decent start to his CFL career, both with Hamilton and Montreal, and exactly the type of guy that you want to bring in. He's not going to threaten
Mm-hmm.
your incumbent, but
Yeah.
he's going to push, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you want. Iron sharpens iron, right? So I really like that signing, and just keeping it from a local perspective. One of my favorite players to not only watch in high school, but then watch in university, and then now watching in the CFL. Tunde Adeleke, um, fantastic safety, return man, slot corner, just an all-purpose weapon. Moved down the QEW from Hamilton to Toronto. So, I mean, you talk about a team bringing in, they're going to lose players because they're successful, but they're bringing in a really good player in Tunde to kind of man the back end of their defense for the next couple of years. So, yeah, shout out to Tunde. Played for the wrong school when he was here, but it was fun to watch nonetheless. So that's an interesting signing by the Argos for sure.
Yeah. Well, you look at how some of these other leagues kind of structure, whether it's free agency, draft, like whatever. What the CFL kind of gets in its own way with is the whole, hey, one week negotiation period. Like all the big signings have kind of already been announced at this point
Yeah,
there. Like, you know, even though in the NHL, like July 1st, hey, it's Canada Day and it's supposed to be the start of free agency, stuff's going to leak anyways.
for
But it's
sure.
not like the
Absolutely.
entire script has been plopped in your lap and it's like, hey, first day of free agency. And we already know, we've
And
seen this
there's no
movie before.
surprises. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, again, it's one of those things where even it just eliminating that negotiation window or even doing the old, slap on the wrist tampering, that the NHL, the NBA, no one ever actually enforces, but builds a little bit into these events where you can have like a full day of, hey, CFL free agency frenzy and tracking things. And
Yeah.
oh, look, AJ Ouellette just went out to Saskatchewan and like, these are things you can do 10-minute segments on and whatnot. So it's a little disappointing just in the format of it.
Yeah. So again, something that we can mark on our list that we can rectify. Um, but yeah, I'm 100% agreement. Growing the game, it shouldn't be this difficult when you see every other sport in this country doing it properly right
Yeah.
now. So, anyways, we'll get better.
We're
CFL will get
creating an
better,
a la
but
carte menu for the CFL here. But here are things we can help you with. Which would you like for your main course here
yeah,
tonight?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But anyways, let's just we'll see how things go, and yeah, if anyone listening to this hasn't been to a CFL game yet, I encourage you to go. It's a great environment, especially given the fact that you're seeing a lot of Canadian talent that are homegrown,
Mm-hmm.
living out their dream, playing, for the team that they grew up watching. So, um, anyways, let's go with a successful 2024 CFL season here. And here's the last thing that I wanted to cover tonight because it's just such an interesting story, and I know that you've got an affinity for sports cards in
Yeah.
general. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to send this to Kyle because it's so unheard of and so unique that I think it would be fun to talk about. So I I, I didn't read where, but I
The
read
booming
that
metropolis of Regina, Saskatchewan.
it's in Regina. Okay, I knew it was out west, but I didn't see where it was. But in that small community, out in Regina, a family located um, boxes of unopened O-Pee-Chee hockey cards from 1979. Now, for those of you who are doing the math in their head as to why that might be significant, pretty famous hockey player had his rookie season in 1979 and probably has a few cards in those O-Pee-Chee kits because anyone who's had one of those boxes knows that you pretty much got one card of every player in the league in those boxes. So, 1979 was the rookie year for Wayne Gretzky,
You may have heard of him.
and may have heard of him. You know, he's a fairly significant Canadian folklore figure. But when I looked at this, I saw the family was putting the cards up for auction without opening them,
Yeah.
and the starting bid was $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And they're keeping it open for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I haven't checked this what it is now. Maybe you got that number, but
It's up over 1.3 right now, but
yeah,
how most of these auctions work is wait until the last hour of the auction
yeah,
and then watch whatever the high bid was, like triple in price
yeah.
essentially.
So I when I was reading it, it said, the estimated value of these boxes is around $2.1 million. Now, that sounds like an outlandish amount for hockey cards, but can you imagine if they were able to turn out one, two, three Wayne Gretzky rookie cards out
Well,
of this kit?
so here's the mathematical breakdowns because as you alluded to, I have a little bit of an affinity for the sports cards markets there. So essentially what it was is it's 16 unopened boxes. So we're not talking about just random packs here. Okay.
Yeah,
So each box has 48 packs of 10 cards. So you do that math, 48 times 10 times 16, you're looking at 7,680 cards. The cards are inserted randomly, but just based on the odds, you're looking at somewhere between 22 to 30 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards being in there. Now, you might say, "Oh my goodness, Wayne Gretzky rookie." Okay, in poor condition, like you kept it in your bike spokes there, you're still probably looking at about 750 to about $1,000 for a rookie card. The most expensive Wayne Gretzky rookie card of all time just got sold in 2021, PSA 10. So for those that don't know, PSA is a card grading service that will
perfect
actually
condition.
exactly. It's gem mint. It's perfect mint condition. And trust me, when a lot of your friends say, "Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of rookie cards," they're in mint condition. They're not. They're probably in like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So
Yeah.
all that to say is this was a gem mint 10 and it went for $3.75 million. Now, are all of them going to grade out as PSA 10s? 100% no. But they're
Mhm.
in unopened boxes. So they are the best candidates to currently in existence to go out and grade out as 10. And all you need is one, and all of a sudden you've remade your entire investment there. Even if they're
Yeah.
coming out as PSA 9s, you're looking at some pretty significant value in terms of
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if we're now talking about 20 to 30 of them there, they're saying conservatively it'll go for 2 million. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets closer to 5 when all is said and
Yeah.
done, just on the off chance that you get one, maybe even two of them in there that are in super high condition. All that being said, they've already been evaluated. So the irony was Heritage Auctions, that's brokering this auction, they had to go up there and examine them. Okay, yeah, they're real. It's not just someone crazy. So they actually drove an armored truck up from Illinois to Regina, Saskatchewan to put these boxes in to bring them back down. Because when you think of it, if they're saying it's going to go for at least $2 million, it's the
Yeah.
equivalent of you can't throw that in the back of a Toyota
No,
Camry and take it across the border. So all
you
that to say,
could, but
well, you could, but you're taking your life into your own hands there. So all that to say is there is some huge money at play here. Now, the one thing to keep in mind though is when that PSA 10 sold, it was in 2021. What was going on in the world in 2021 on a global scale there, Kyle? Oh, lockdowns.
yeah.
So everyone took up weird hobbies and stuff that they had done in their childhood and so obviously 2021 was the perfect breeding ground for record prices and whether it was baseball cards, football cards, hockey cards, whatever. All of it
Or
sold for
houses.
yeah, or houses as well too, right? Lumber, drywall, record prices. So saying that even if you got a PSA 10 that it's automatically going to go for $3.75 million isn't a guarantee. That being said, though, the sheer volume of
Yeah.
really good chances of them coming out as PSA 8s, 9s, possibly even 110 in that group is what makes this so unique. And you're never going to
Yeah.
find it again because it's hard enough to even find one sealed box.
Yeah.
16 of them
16 of them.
is literally just like finding the Mona Lisa tucked away in grandma's closet one day.
Yeah. And, the funny part is that I remember when I had gone back home, I want to say in 2010. And I was just kind of going through some old stuff in my parents' storage room, and I found an old pack of the O-Pee-Chee hockey cards from 1990. And I'm like, I got to see what's in here. And, you know, obviously when I was a kid, I was really big into hockey card collecting. So I had already picked, all the good cards out of there, right? And put them, in, and again, smart on my end
Yeah.
because, knew that now, the
He's
hockey
not
cards
just a
would
pretty
actually be
face, he's also a smart guy there. Huh?
this was before all the potential issues with concussions started. So I mean, my mind was like a steel trap back when I was young. But anyways, yeah. But I'm going through it. I'm like, oh man, like, can you imagine what a Dave Babich rookie card would be? But it definitely, but it was exciting, right? It was
Yeah.
exciting to see what the mystery, was going to be inside of that box. So I can only imagine whoever buys these things, just the anticipation. It's like gambling, right? Like
Yeah.
you're putting all of your chips in the middle of the table and you're going all in on it because you're spending $5 million on the potential to hit on maybe, 20 million. Pretty good return on your investment.
Yeah.
But you could also come up craps
Yeah.
and,
Oh,
and not get anything.
absolutely. Because the dangerous part of this is if you actually look at the checklist for 1979, 1980, which is what the O-Pee-Chee set is here, it's Gretzky or bust. Like it's
Yeah,
not like you're going to be coming across Steve Eiserman and Mark Messier and like all of their rookie cards. They were several years later. Literally the most valuable other rookie cards in the sets are Bobby Smith, good old Ottawa boy right there,
yeah,
Ken Lintzman, and Dave Semenko, who just at a casual look up, I was like, you know what? Before the show, he wants to talk about this. Let's see what like a nicely graded Dave Semenko rookie card is going for. Found a PSA 8, which is pretty good. That's essentially
yeah,
mint condition, near mint condition, and it was going for $20. So it's all in on how many Gretzky cards am I gonna get and what condition are they in. So it's literally
yeah,
buying a lottery ticket, but you know you're gonna get a bunch of them, but are they coming out as nines? Are they coming out as tens? Are they coming out as eights? Because the difference between an 8 and a 10 is literally millions of
yeah,
dollars.
yeah. I'd be interested because I've got my old hockey card collection, my brother's old baseball card collection, and I should bring them over so you can kind of evaluate them and give me a an accurate
Yeah.
evaluation on what we're sitting on money wise. But
You know
um,
what? That's a future segment episode right there. I
there
can't
we
wait to
go.
just be going through it, but Kyle, look at this. And it's like, oh, that's the 1991 Pro set. Your entire binder is worth 10 cents here.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what? I'm definitely overvaluing what the cards are, but I mean, I got some good ones in there.
yeah.
I will say though, I'm very when I was young, I was very upset because two of the best cards that I had were it was a Phil and Tony Esposito brother card. It was Tony Esposito's rookie year. So then this was again dating back to what 1966 or something like that. And I had a Paul Coffey rookie card that was in plastic, so it
Yeah.
was brand new mint condition. And our childhood dog just decided out of the blue that she was going to sneak into the storage room where we kept all this stuff and get into a bunch of things, and she ended up chewing those two cards. And I'm like, you couldn't have chewed the All Samuelson or or the
Yeah.
Zarly Zalapski. You had to choose those particular cards. And I remember I looked up the Phil and Tony Esposito card when I was a little bit older, and I think it was a grade 7 evaluation, and it was like $5,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, I mean, things like that, get that gut punch feeling, right? And yeah, but again, I'm interested to see. We'll definitely do a segment on that in the near future because I know my brother's got a lot of really high profile baseball cards, so he's probably sitting on a lot more money than I am.
Well, we'll see what the Ulf Dollins and Oleg Suprikins of your collection are going for on the secondary market. Yeah.
What do you mean the Jamie McCowan Calgary card isn't going for hundreds of dollars?
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this. And yeah, it's got a couple weeks to go, but you don't need to keep much of an eye on it leading up to it. Because like I said, it's for those that do want to follow up on it, just figure out when the last day it is, and then you can
Yeah,
kind of watch that price skyrocket very quickly.
yeah, but yeah, something to keep an eye on for sure. But yeah, man, I think that's it for week number 6. Unless you got anything else that you want to get off your chest.
No, at this point, just golf claps all around. We kept it positive this week here, so good job for us. Okay, good job by you.
Absolutely,
Look at us go
good
here.
job, good job. All right, until week 7, my friend.